Happy lunch hour, gang. All right, still Labor Day, and today's the day we celebrate all of us working. This is a workers' holiday, if you will. You know what we're celebrating, really? The fact that we're finally making money for ourselves. And I'll explain. The other day, I was watching a video, a short clip from a kid, probably in his mid-20s, who was complaining that $40 an hour isn't enough money, that we need to have wages even higher than that. And he complained that I bought a cup of coffee, that cost me $7. I bought a hamburger, that cost me $11. And I put $25 worth of gas in my car. Just for that, I've got to work for an hour. And I'm like, okay. The $7 cup of coffee that you bought, you could have brewed at home for a quarter. The $11 hamburger that you bought, I don't know, you could have made a sandwich at home, or 10 for the same amount of money. And that $25 worth of gas, all right, at today's prices, that's probably 7 gallons, okay? Unless, of course, you live in California, but we'll get into that in a second, too. That'll probably last you, depending on the car you have, a few days to a week. All right, $40 an hour is a good living. Tell you that right now. And I got a kick out of the fact because the kid was 25 years old-ish, and he's bitching about that amount of money where that was what he is making at the beginning of his career. And at the very end of mine, I made teeny tiny bit more than that. Okay. So I went and I did a little bit of looking to figure out why everybody's claiming we are all so broke. Now, I'm not going to say for a second that food prices are ridiculous, that insurance prices are ridiculous, that electricity prices have gone up, that gas prices, fortunately, have come down, okay, but that it's expensive to live. But we all talk about living within our means. And this is where it gets silly. So I went and I looked to do the most average person in the country. And a few weeks back, I told you guys, do this exercise. I said, see how much money you spend every day. Okay? Break it down. How much your mortgage costs you a day. How much your car payment costs you a day, how much gasoline costs you a day, how much your electricity costs you a day, and figure out what life costs you per day, so then you can figure out how many hours of work you have to go just to pay for the day, right? And a lot of you guys took me up on that and were surprised. I'm going to give you another exercise to do. I'm going to give you a average American. You do this for yourself, and the numbers are going to shock you because they floored me when I did this. The average salary, not the median, the average salary in the United States is $62,088 a year. Okay. Now, granted, you've got everybody included in that from Elon Musk all the way down to the guy who's, begging for quarters on the street corner. This is everybody. This is the average of the entire country. Then I went and I looked to see what the most average city was in the country when it came to taxes. Now, federal tax is the same whether you live in Boise, Idaho, or whether you live in Honolulu. Doesn't make a difference. But state taxes, but property taxes, but fuel taxes, but sales taxes, et cetera, are all different. So I went and I looked to find what city in the United States was the most average. Take the average of everything and what's got it. And it turned out it's Columbus, Ohio. Okay, that the tax rates in Columbus, Ohio basically are for everything pretty much average across the country. So if $62,088 is your income and you live in Columbus, Ohio, your tax burden each year is $19,101. Look at this. This means that 31% of your gross income goes to pay taxes. And you hear all this all the time of, oh, we've got to reduce the federal income tax rate, or, SALT. We heard all that, state and local taxes, et cetera, et cetera. And people go, what's your tax rate? Oh, I'm in the 12% bracket. I'm in the 22% bracket. And they don't add in property tax or sales tax or fuel tax. Hey, California, I want to give you this as an example. A gallon of gas in Oklahoma costs the same as a gallon of gas in California, or damn close. The reason that the price you pay at the pump is so much higher in California isn't because the gas is more expensive. It's because the taxes that you pay on it are unbelievable. That's the issue, okay? So people need to take a look at their total tax burden. 31% of your gross income goes to pay taxes. You've all heard the term Tax Freedom Day, right? If you live in Columbus, Ohio, and you are Joe Average, it takes you 112 calendar days of working, including Saturdays and Sundays, okay, to pay your taxes. Just your taxes. So that means it's April 23rd before you get a single penny for your labor. Okay? What you think about that? You've now worked 3 months and 3 weeks just to pay the government. All that work you did, right? So after you pay your tax burden, that leaves you with $42,987. All right. Go. It's not terrible. Okay, it's a little less than $4,000 a month. I can live on that. Taxes ain't the killer, guys. This is the problem. Again, we're looking at the average American. I looked all this up. The average mortgage balance in the United States is $266,843. That's not what you can go buy a house for. That's what the average balance is on existing mortgages right now. The average interest rate on existing mortgages is somewhere between 3.5% and 4.5%. Okay, obviously they can't come up and specifically get a number. So let's take the average there and say 4%. Now we've ranged between about 2.65% and a little over 7% in the last 20 years. So coming in around 4 makes sense. If you calculate simple interest, not amortized interest, okay, that means the average Joe is paying about $10,674 in interest on the mortgage every year. Okay? The average used car note, not even thinking about new cars because who the hell can afford a new car anymore? The average used car note, the current balance on it is $26,144. The average interest rate on a used car in the United States right now is 11.87. You're paying $3,103 in interest on the car note. The average credit card balance, $6,371. Average interest rate, 20.12%. Interest per year, $1,282. I'm sorry. Yes, $1,282. The average student loan, $39,075. That's the current balance. The average interest rate, 6.39%. That means you're paying $2,497 in interest per year. Add all those up. The average person is paying $17,556 in interest per year. Not principal, not nothing, just interest. That is 41% of your take-home pay. You are paying nearly half of your take-home pay for the privilege of borrowing money. And we borrow money for stupid shit. Okay? So let's put this together. What is your tax and interest freedom day? Remember, April 23rd, just to pay your taxes. August 4th. You have now collected on Labor Day the first month's worth of pay that you actually get to keep for all the work you've done all year. It takes 215 days of your labor to pay your taxes and the interest on the debt you have if you're an average American. That's sickening, okay? It comes to the question again, and you see it all the time. Why is the American public so poor? We don't owe our soul to the company store anymore. We owe it to the bank, all right? We can't control how much we owe in taxes, directly at least. I mean, depending on who we elect, sure, they'll adjust taxes, but taxes don't go down. I hate to tell you this, all right? But we can control how much we pay in interest. You hear all the stories, you remember this, many people have said this. People say all the time, why is it that the average family can't own a home on one income anymore? They used to be able to own a home and own a car on one blue-collar income. That's true. Look at this picture. Notice anything different between this house and the ones that you see for sale now? Everybody wants the big house, the 2,000, 2,500 square foot house. That house is what? That picture, what would you guess? 1,200, 1,300 square feet? Okay. This is the problem. Those are the homes people were buying. Small ones. I remember my grandparents' home. It was small. Okay. I remember the first house we lived in when I was a kid. It was small. Now you look at these kids and they go, I need the 4-bedroom house. Why? Seriously, why? Okay. You look at the average used car payment. I talked about that before. The average used car payment is $571 for 67 months. That's what we're paying. The problem is, it's not that most people don't make enough money. I'm not saying all, okay, but most people. You're making $62,000 a year, you're okay. It's that we want instant gratification. I've got to go buy the new sports car. You know? Oh, notice how, look at a car dealer, for example. You don't see the price, ads. You don't see the price of the car advertised. It doesn't say $42,999. It says $397 a month. We've been conditioned to finance everything. Now, granted, I will give you, there are certain things in life that you don't have a whole lot of choice for. A mortgage or rent, okay, the average rent in the country is $1,898 for a 2-bedroom apartment, okay. So that just makes these numbers even worse because you're getting nothing for your rent. At least with the house, you're building some equity. but we are financing our life away. You look at Jamie Dimon, okay? Many of you know the name, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. His total compensation for 2024 was $39 million. That was 8.3% more than the $36 million he made in 2023. You know why he got more money? Record profits for the bank. Guess where that money came from? The loan officer makes about the average. A bank teller makes about half the average. The CEO is making nearly $40 million a year. Okay. This is the thing. By borrowing money, we're creating our own demise. We're creating feudalism. We're voluntarily creating the 1% and voluntarily accepting our place as the 99% of paupers. We're feeding the fire. We've got to borrow money. We've got to borrow money. We've got to borrow money. No, you don't. Okay. Proverbs 22. Y'all know this one. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave to the lender. Go back to Shakespeare's Macbeth. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. We need to stop funding our own downfall. I mean, 10 years ago, when I was coming out of my disaster, if you will, okay, when I was homeless, I went and bought a truck at a junkyard for $1,000. It wasn't pretty, but it was reliable. It ran. It got me to work. It got me to the store. And that $1,000 is less than 2 months' car payments right now. It wasn't pretty. My neighbor drives an old, beat-up Datsun pickup truck. Datsun. You know, remember, Datsun's the predecessor to Nissan. When's the last time you saw a Datsun? This truck looks beat to hell. It's loud. It does whatever. You know what? That thing starts up every day and he zips around and does whatever he needs to do with it. It works. Guaranteed it's paid for. Okay. Like I said before, mortgages or rent, that's a necessary evil. You got to have a roof over your head. But at what cost? How big of a house do you really need? Maybe you'll get there eventually, get the bigger house. But nobody started life off at the top. You worked your way to get to it. Because the thing is this, when we live within our means, we become rich. Maybe not necessarily financially, but certainly psychologically. And that's the important part. Pinball out.